So I know that you wrote this tool both for the academic space, and then I also talked with you about how this would translate into the military space as well. So let's kind of share a little bit about what people can find in the tool itself.
Right. So, in part inspired by conversations with you and then speaking with people in leadership roles and organizations around the country, what I discovered is there's a hunger for people connected to organizations, the US military counts, to connect more than they're finding a place to do that. And speaking with you, you shared, Charles, in the old days, there were all kinds of casual, informal events that people would gather. And then there were less number of formal, high-produced events, balls,
Mhm.
graduations that we would gather. And you recognize that now, because there are less informal events, there's a dependence on these big formal events, great connection, but they're not a good venue for that. They're often too noisy. There's a lot of programming. People are dressed as and acting as they don't usually. And what you wanted to see was return to this comfort with bringing people together in casual events in which they felt comfortable. And we noticed that because of changes in our culture, that a lot of the skills and traditions that have made that successful in the past are missing. So one of the things I did is I looked deep into my work where we're referencing very old ideas that bring people together. And we created just a short document that can be guidelines when someone wants to create an event for neighbors, for people connected to their school, who just live near them at some defined area, can do that easily and create an event that just isn't spectacle or gets a lot of people in the room. But when you leave, you think, that was really good looking, but I'm not leaving with friends that I want. So to create casual events where we generate friends, and for example, when we thought about what are the events that we want to make better, where people can connect better, we came up with family and marriage events, volunteer leadership retreats, just creating affinity spaces, town hall sessions, and family organization days, or just a sampling of the events that we can apply principles and what's already getting planned will get better.
hmm Yeah, and I think that one of the things that we're seeing in society as a whole is that people are finding places of community in affinity groups, perhaps in your community, and you may not even realize that you are using some of the tips that you've put in this tool. Like you said, like getting together for a meal, making it very casual. How do we find those? How do we center it around something that we have in common? Or how do we center it around fun? I think the world has gotten so serious the more that we have opened up our awareness of everything happening in the world and in the news that I feel like we are coming back to a place in society where we are needing to play. We do need to have fun. And one of the things that you were talking about that made me think of a conversation that I had with another military spouse who was really frustrated that she was trying to get people together, but she did have a more formal picture in mind, something that was equivalent to the traditional coffees. Those of you who aren't military, it wasn't necessarily we were actually drinking coffee. It was sometimes a little bit more of a formal, like tea, luncheon. It did over time become casual, where it was just show up, even if you have to show up with your toddlers, and let's throw some food together and gather and talk and visit. But then everything again went online, and we've seen that disintegrate, and people felt less connected than ever. But she was frustrated that she couldn't get more people together. And I said, well, what have you been doing? And she said, well, I can get people together to play kickball, and that's working. And I was just, it sounds crazy to say I was blown away by her idea. I was like, kickball sounds amazing. Like, I would love to come play kickball. That sounds
Mhm.
more fun than going to someone's house that in a way that's kind of stuffy and
Mhm.
formal. And what my point to this story is that she didn't realize that she was already succeeding at what builds community and connection. So let's talk a little bit more about what people can actually find in your guide, in that resource that has been built out.
Well, we have several sections that are all really, really easy to implement. One idea is you got to figure out, well, who do you want to spend time with? And we kind of referenced this earlier in this conversation. Only invite people that you want to spend time with. Hopefully, that's a pretty generous definition, but the idea is not every event needs to invite everyone all the time. And Corey, you're sharing with me about being a military spouse and wanting to meet other families when you're on base. That doesn't mean that anybody who works on base, there's heard of military or visit the military should come. You want to meet other people supporting service members. That counts.
Mhm.
And once we figured out who we want to bring, and it can be a very easy definition like military spouses, then we need to think, well, why do we want to bring them together? And as we shared, you just wanted to make friends. But we know who we want to bring together and what we want to bring them together to, then we can be honest about that and not pretend it's about a celebration or about learning something or about designing something or about planning something. We just want to make friends. And it sounds like, Corey, you'd come to most events that are convenient for you where there is kickball playing with military families that want to make friends.